People who work deadbeat jobs sure have a lot of free time.
Just as I was in a good mood, Gabriella began insulting us in a loud voice. But regardless of what she said, my husband kept his cool, so though I felt my heart twisting, I let her comments go. Usually the other moms laugh along with her comments, but today they were strangely silent. Just as I thought something was off, Miss Peterson spoke up. "You should apologize." Miss Peterson then began to share the truth. "My name is Jessica Murphy. I'm 33 years old and work part-time. My husband Arthur works at a construction company. We both work, but we make sure to prioritize time at home with our family. We also have a 4-year-old daughter named Zoe. Zoe is in preschool now, and she seems to really enjoy it. Seeing Zoe enjoying school makes me incredibly happy, but there is one thing that bothers me. And that's the mom of Zoe's classmate, Katie. Her name is Gabriela Santos. She's 33 years old like me, but she's a housewife. Her husband Louis works at a bank, and she brags about how elite he is every day. If that was it, that'd be fine, but once she heard about my husband's job, her attitude towards me totally changed. Gabriella and I got along at first, but she became so outspoken and rude to me that her personality began to disgust me. Every time we'd see each other, she'd do all she could to claim superiority over me. I would avoid her and her drama as much as I could, but I couldn't escape from her entirely. The reason for that was Zoe and Katie were friends. I didn't want Zoe's first friendship to suffer because of a conflict between us moms. But Gabriella's actions only escalated.
"My husband is an elite banker. He's super busy every day. Well, what can you do? He's someone we're always relying on."
She would then let out a fake high-class laugh, and the other moms around would smile lightly and nod their heads. I said good morning, and then continued walking forward to take Zoe to her classroom, but Gabriella stopped.
"Come on, there's still time until class begins. You have tons of free time anyway, right? Just like your husband."
I smiled through a clenched jaw at Gabriella's sarcastic comment. Seeing my reaction, she carried on even more enthusiastically. Gabriella loves mocking people, and I'm an easy target because my emotions always come out of my face.
There's one good thing about your husband. He works in construction, right? So he has loads of free time even during the week and can play with your daughter all the time."
She said that with a wide grin. I got used to ignoring Gabriella's words. Arthur may work in construction, but he's serious about his job, and he makes a decent salary. Regardless, since the day Gabriella happened to see Arthur in his work clothes, her superiority complex has gone crazy. I really didn't understand the mindset of someone who would make fun of another person based on their job.
"Should my husband introduce yours to a better job?" "Well, I'm sure that your husband's skill set is very low, so the jobs he can get into are limited."
Dealing with her was a hassle, so I just smiled at whatever she said. Gabriella forced the other moms to agree with her, and then gave a triumphant smile. Her continuous insults were vile. I knew I couldn't stand listening her make fun of Arthur anymore, so I started leaving. It was about time for the kids to head to class. Gabriella got a bit flustered when I said this forcefully. I made it very clear that I had nothing to say to her, so Gabriella finally swallowed her words. Giving her a side-eye, I sighed and walked away. I wouldn't have minded seeing her frown a bit longer, but I didn't feel like staring. I quickly left the moms behind. The next day, I dropped Zoe off at preschool and went to the supermarket where I work part-time as usual. During my lunch break, I got a call from Zoe's preschool. Picking up the phone, Zoe's teacher, Miss Peterson, explained what had just happened in a flustered voice. It seems that Zoe had hit Katie. Not knowing what had happened, I ran to my boss to tell him it was an emergency and then rushed to the preschool. By the time I arrived at the preschool, Gabriella was already there, and she glared at me hatefully. Sitting next to Gabriella was Katie, crying with swollen cheeks. At a distance was Zoe, who had an angry expression and tear-filled eyes. Miss Peterson directed me to sit next to Zoe and then explained the situation to me once again. According to her, Zoe and Katie were playing together as normal in the morning. However, in the afternoon she happened to turn her back on them and this happened. Miss Peterson had no idea what had caused this trouble. "Zoe, why did you hit Katie?" I hugged Zoe's shoulders and asked her this, but she stayed silent and just stared at the ground. Wondering how I could encourage Zoe to tell me what happened, Gabriella began yelling at us from the other side of the room.
"How could she do this? She made my Katie's cheeks all swollen and painful. Of course, children whose parents work deadbeat jobs turn out violent like this. You were the same yesterday. The way you tried to pick a fight with me, Zoe obviously saw and learned from you. You're so barbaric."
Gabriella said this with a snicker and a piercing look in her eyes. It seems like she still hadn't gotten over my attitude towards her yesterday. The fact she used the situation as an excuse to complain about that put me in a bad mood. She continued to complain like this for a few more minutes. When she began saying insults that obviously had nothing to do with the situation, Miss Peterson looked between us with a troubled expression on her face. But I didn't say anything back to Gabriella. The truth was, Zoe hit Katie after all. I apologized and took Zoe home. When we got home, I took out some snacks and told Zoe I wanted us to talk this through. As Zoe stared at the snacks, her face twisted into a pained expression.
"But she said mean things about Dad."
My eyes widened. Wondering how a conversation between Zoe and Katie could have led there, Zoe began slowly explaining what happened that day. Zoe played together with Katie from the morning on as usual. After they ate lunch, they decided to play house. Katie was going to play the mom, while the other girls would play daughters. Zoe was told to be the dad, but she said she didn't want to because she doesn't know what it feels like to be a dad, and so she left the game. The other girls accepted it, but then Katie, who was playing the mom role, began imitating her mom and insulting Arthur. When Zoe complained, Katie simply said that her mom usually says all those things at home. That made Zoe angry, so she hit Katie. Once she finished her story, Zoe's shoulders drooped sadly.
"Katie says she'll never play with me again. We're not friends anymore. What do I do?"
"If you apologize, she'll forgive you."
"But she said her mom told her. She told her not to play with kids from families like mine. Even though her mom said that, she was my friend, but now I hit her."
I couldn't believe my ears. Gabriella would go as far as to say that to a child. My frustration and sadness showed clearly on my face, and Zoe began to cry loudly. As I was doing my best to comfort her, Arthur came home from work. He was confused by the obviously heavy atmosphere at home and looked at me for answers. I explained what had happened that day. Arthur then laughed loudly.
"All friends fight sometimes. Try apologizing, and even if she doesn't accept us at first, if she sees you having fun later, she'll want to play with you again."
Arthur said that so nonchalantly that Zoe gave a relieved smile. I also felt encouraged by his words, and my mood became bright again.
"I have great news. Actually,"
Arthur spoke to us happily. His story surprised me, but in honor of what happened, we decided that night we would celebrate. A few days later, Arthur and I went to pick up Zoe together. He had happened to finish work early that day. Arthur was busy on Zoe's first day of preschool, so he never had a chance to properly look around. This time he was able to happily wander around the school. As we headed towards Zoe's classroom, Gabriella noticed us and began insulting us in a loud voice.
"People who work deadbeat jobs sure have a lot of free time."
Hearing that made me angry, but Arthur didn't seem to mind. After what happened between Zoe and Katie, Gabriella's personality had grown even more sour than before. She completely shunned me. The other moms also found out my relationship with Gabriella had taken a turn for the worse, so I could feel how tense they became any time I was around. Gabriella would harass any of the moms who associated with me, so they all began avoiding me. She really never changed. Even now she was insulting us loudly with zero hesitation. This obviously made me angry, and I wanted to speak up, but I saw that Arthur was letting it all go in one ear and out the other, so I stayed quiet. I had given up on Gabriella. No matter what she may say Arthur's work is nothing to be ashamed of. Thinking that, I just side-eyed her and suppressed my anger. That still wasn't enough for her, so she began bragging about her own husband.
Thank God my husband is an elite. That's why my children don't hit others when they're angry. Such barbaric people are so scary. Y'all think so too, right?
The other moms usually laughed along with Gabriella, but today they were strangely silent. For the first time, no one seemed to agree with her. Something felt off, and Gabriella obviously noticed that because she went wide-eyed.
What? Y'all think so too, right? Coming here in his work clothes? The two of them are so embarrassing.
As she laughed aloud, Miss Peterson spoke up. You should apologize. Hearing that, Gabriella said, huh? And the happy expression on her face clouded over.
Why would I have to apologize?
Gabriella was unwielding, so Miss Peterson began to speak in a concerned voice. I heard this the other day from Mr. Santos when he came to pick up Katie. Mr. Murphy's company is supposedly an important client at the bank Mr. Santos works for. Mr. Santos was promoted thanks to Mr. Murphy, and so he was very grateful. Shocked to hear that, Gabriella held her breath. I also didn't know about this, so I turned to look at Arthur, surprised. He smiled as if nothing had happened. He also appeared on TV recently as the upcoming president of his company. As soon as Miss Peterson finished saying that, the moms standing around us also began talking about Arthur. Gabriella and I both felt the respect in their eyes. I found out about Arthur's TV appearance the same day the trouble between Zoe and Katie happened. That was what Arthur happily told us about when he got home from work that day. The TV program called him the capable future president of the company. I remember the shining smile on Arthur's face as he watched the TV that night. That night we celebrated his TV appearance, but I didn't think so many people had seen it. Understanding the mistake she had made, Gabriella's face went bright red and she glared at me.
Why didn't you tell me earlier? I can't believe it. The next president? You're going to be the wife of a company president? You were internally making fun of me this whole time, weren't you? How could you shame me like this?
I was sick and tired of Gabriella, who was nonsensically accusing me of the mistake she had made on her own. She wanted to frame me as the bad guy no matter what. Right as I was about to talk back to Gabriella, a voice called out to her. She turned around with a shocked look on her face.
Gabriella, what are you doing? Are you picking a fight?
Louis, no. This person embarrassed me so.
It was Gabriella's husband. He looked surprised to see us. He then immediately smiled and came over to shake Arthur's hand.
Arthur, thank you for your help always.
I turned to Arthur shocked, and he also had a stunned look on his face.
To think our kids are at the same preschool. Our company takes loans from his bank. Louis was recently put in charge of our account. He even came over to our office to introduce himself when it happened.
Louis smiled and shook Arthur's hand again.
Taking on your company's account was a big promotion for me. You were so kind to me when I visited you. I still have a lot to learn. Arthur runs a huge company. Our bank is very grateful to have them as a client.
Louis spoke humbly. Arthur thanked him in reply. The two of them seemed to have a good relationship. After seeing the two of them, I glanced at Gabriella, who was standing next to her husband. Her face grew pale, and she took a step back. She must have realized her mistake because she began urging her husband to go home. This confused her husband, who then turned to Arthur to ask what was going on. Arthur lightheartedly explained our daughters had gotten into a little argument.
Ah, could it be? The family that Gabriella is always complaining about.
Louis seemed to realize what was going on. After giving his wife a sharp stare, he began apologizing to us. I'm sure Gabriella is regretting her actions. Katie's words were entirely influenced by her mother, after all. I stayed silent, while Arthur expressed that everything was fine, but Louis looked at his wife with worn-out eyes.
Gabriella, you've been so selfish, causing so much trouble for everyone. You tried showing off again, right? I keep telling you to stop doing that. but you went and did something stupid again. Huh. We have a lot to talk about when we get home.
When Louis said this, Gabriella froze in fear, like a frog that's been caught by a snake. Seeing her like that was honestly somewhat refreshing. After this incident, Gabriella never insulted or made fun of me ever again. Anytime she sees me, she goes pale and avoids eye contact. If I say good morning, she replies back with a bitter smile. The other moms stopped ignoring me like they used to, so now I could lightheartedly go to the preschool. Gabriella no longer acted like the high-class person she used to pretend to be. It seems that on that same day, her husband also found out about how frivolously she had been using his money. She was so wasteful with her spending that Louis even suggested they get divorced, but she swore she would never do it again in order to save their relationship. Her clique of moms disappeared, and she's now isolated from everyone. As they say, you reap what you sow. I'm sure she's reflecting on her actions now. When I heard what Arthur and Miss Peterson had to say that day, I once again thought to myself that one should never be mean. It'll only come back to bite you later. Since it was official that Arthur would become the next president of his company, our family's bright future was ensured. But that doesn't mean Arthur is slacking off. He's just as hardworking as usual. Zoe and Katie ended their friendship, but they quickly managed to find new friends and both seemed to have a lot of fun at preschool. I'm sure our family will go through more dramas in the future, but as long as Arthur and Zoe are happy, so am I. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you liked the video, please don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. See you in the next video.